Hey guys, I'm Maddie and welcome back to my channel. This year was such a great year for reading. I really dove back into it. I read a lot growing up as a kid, and then throughout like high school and college I kind of stopped. And then at the end of 2023 is when I really got back into reading. Like exactly a year ago, I read Fourth Wing for the first time, and that was the book. That was my canon event. That is what sent me into my reading spiral and what made me fall in love with it again. And this year, I don't know exactly how many books I read. I think roughly 60, give or take. And we're gonna talk about some of them today. This video was inspired by Larry Reed's. She did her end of the year book tag, and I thought I would join in and do the same. So all of these questions are from her, and I think she got inspiration from Destiney Sidwell. So credit to them, but let's hop right into it. The first question is, what was the most disappointing read? And for me, that was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I borrowed it from the library and I actually DNF'd it. I heard so many people talk so highly of it. I think it was pretty popular on Book Talk. Some of the Facebook groups I'm a part of, a lot of people spoke very highly of it there, and that it was just this very immersive book and that they loved it and it was one of the best ones they've read. Unfortunately, I did not get the hype. I found it very, very boring. I didn't see where the story was going. It didn't captivate me. I wasn't intrigued. I was very bored and I just DNF'd it, did not finish. And I was pretty disappointed. Like, since I heard so much about it, I'm like, yes, this is gonna be a book I love, because to be honest, most of the Book Talk books I do really enjoy and I'm a sucker for them. And I thought that one would be no different. It sounded like something I'd enjoy. I don't even really remember the plot of it. I think it's this girl who, it's kind of like The Age of Adeline, I think, where she doesn't really age, but then lives these bunch of different lives and has to keep moving around and meets different people at different stages in her life in different cities, but can't stay for too long. Was there something about her dad too, and like a magic book? Oh no, that was that was the 10,000 Doors of January. That was another one that I also did not finish, unfortunately. It was also kind of disappointing, but yeah, I just wasn't captivated by The Age of Addie LaRue. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Oh my lord. Next question, what was an underdog book? I don't know if this is an underdog book, but it was just a one-off and it's actually a novella, and that is Six Scorched Roses by Carissa Broadbent. I loved this book. Also, can we just take a moment and appreciate the cover? Gorgeous! This came at a recommendation from Carter Sullivan. She said how it's a super short, obviously because it's a novella, but a super short fantasy book that if you're just looking for something quick and easy to pick this up. And I didn't really know much about it. And this is in the same world as, it's a Crowns of Nyaxia novella. It's in the same world as The Serpent and the Wings of Night, The Ashes and the Star-Crossed Cursed, and the third book just came out. The third book is The Songbird and the Heart of Stone, and that was just released within the last month or two, I think. Anyways, this follows a human girl, I believe, and her land is like, has some curse on it, and then she has to make friends, seek out an alliance with this vampire, and she needs his blood to try to stop the curse. There is smut and spice in this book. It is spicier than I was expecting, and I went into this very, very blind. Didn't know what to expect. Had no real expectations for this book, and it blew me away. Don't really hear many people talking about this. I hear a little bit more about The Serpents and the Wings of Night, but this novella, highly recommend. And I haven't read any of the other books in the series, and I still loved this. I think these characters make an appearance later in the series. Next question, what was an overhyped book? And I saw Larry made a comment about this, and I totally agree with her. If a book is overhyped, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just means that a lot of people are reading it and a lot of people think highly of it. which, yes, is that like hopping on the bandwagon? Maybe, and maybe you only enjoy it because you have these like preconceived notions from other people that it's gonna be good. But for me, a book that was overhyped and that I just didn't get was Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This book just fell flat for me. Like, it was cute, but I wasn't in love with the characters. I didn't really get like the warm fuzzy feelings that everybody else talks about. I enjoyed it, but I thought it was just kind of cheesy, a little cringy, kind of like a Hallmark movie where I'm like, yeah, I liked it, but I didn't really like the guy. He kind of gave me the ick, and it's just like, it's about these kids who like grow up together and then they move away and they both have some like hardships that they go through, but then they're like reconnected later and they spark up that friendship, and they're obsessed with reading, and the biggest thing is like, what's your favorite word? And then they give them a word, and then a really cutesy little scene is like, what's your favorite word? You. And like, it was cute and I liked it, but it just wasn't my favorite. And a lot of people are obsessed and like, oh, it's my favorite book. I'm like, yeah, it was fine. Next question is a book that surprised you. And I knew this book was gonna be good. And that is Butcher and Blackbird. I actually did a reading vlog on this. I was surprised how funny it was. I know it says on the back, a dark romantic comedy full of murder, chaos, and sizzling chemistry, but I don't even think I read the back. I just knew it was about two serial killers who fall in love. This book is hilarious, and I've heard good things about the audiobook, and I think I would like to listen to that at some point. There's also the second book, Leather and Lark. That one was also really good. This one I did enjoy more. And then there's a third book, Sparrow and Scythe, that comes out next February or March, I want to say. But I love this book. We follow Sloane and Rowan, and the spice, the gruesome murdering. It's not like, it is dark. This book is pretty dark. There is like a trigger warning list at the beginning, but it's not super morbid, I wouldn't say. And like, it goes into details about the murder, but it wasn't like, I don't know how to explain it. This book was just so funny. It had me kicking my feet and squealing and just having a great time with this, and I was very surprised. Your favorite book couple of the year? You already know! Feyre and Rhysand. Rhysand is my book boyfriend. I love him so, so much. Him and Feyre together, their banter, the spicy scenes. That's why I picked this one, because this one's where it gets good. This is the second book of A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury. Need I say more? So many people have raved and went on and on and on about this series. I was scared to be disappointed, so I only read this series, like, started a month or two ago, and I only have A Court of Silver Flames left, and I've been putting that off because I don't want to leave my friends in Prythian in the Night Court. But Freya and Rhys, how it came about, oh, so good, so good. Okay, this one, I'm cheating a little bit here. Favorite main characters. They also happen to be a couple. Violet and Xaden. Enemies to lovers, dragons, romance, war college. This book has my entire soul. Not this one specifically. This one wasn't as good as Fourth Wing, but we'll circle back there. So good. And the third one, Onyx Storm, comes out in January. A new favorite author for me is Ali Hazelwood. I love her writing. She started out on All of Our Own, AO3. I think it's kind of like Wattpad-ish. And a lot of her books are inspired by like fanfic, like Star Wars, I think it is the most popular one. But she writes a lot of women in STEM, and like these are just cutesy little fun romance books. It's just, this one is about Jack and Elsie. Elsie offers her service as a fake dater, and then she is fake dating this Jack's brother, and like they hate each other. Jack and Elsie do not get along. Oil and water, no chemistry, not even friendly. And we all know where that ends up. They get real friendly real quick. Real quick. And I love it, love it, love it, love it. The next question is an author that didn't work out for you this year. And to be honest, I don't have one to include in here. I read a lot of like, I either read a lot by one author, like series, like Rebecca Yarros, like Sarah J. Maas, like Ali Hazelwood, and then I loved everything they wrote, or I would read a lot of like one-off authors, and I just didn't come across any that I either read enough where I was like, kind of turned off by them, or I loved them so much and read all of their work and loved all of their work. So I don't have anyone to include here. What is the happiest book you read this year? That would be Done and Dusted by Miss Lila Sage. This is the first book in a Rebel Blue Ranch novel. This is a series. There is Done and Dusted, which is the first one. The second one is Swift and Saddled. Third is Lost and Lassoed. And then the fourth one just got announced. Wild and Wrangled is the fourth book. And we follow a family. This one is about Emmy and her childhood crush type thing. No, her brother's best friend, who is also kind of like her friend-ish. She was like raised by their family a little bit. Not step siblings, like they had their own families, but he has a rougher family dynamic, so her family kind of like took him in a little bit. Super, super cute, just very feel good. No third act breakup. The couple stays together and it's just so wholesome, so sweet. This is definitely would be a comfort read for me. I know I said that in my book review. I haven't reread it, but if I ever need just something feel good, it would be this book. Next question, what was the saddest book you read this year? And that would be The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros. She is the one who wrote the Empyrean series, like Fourth Wing, Iron Flame. The Last Letter, I didn't know anything going into it. Like I didn't even read the back little blurb. And I was crying within the first 12 pages, I want to say. Within the first chapter, I was bawling, and it did not stop being an emotional roller coaster since then. Since the first chapter. The ending kills you. I bawled like a baby, like sobbed, because the twist, so unexpected. I thought we had made it over the hump of sadness, only for my heart to be ripped out of my chest. For what? For what? That was a 5-star read for me, and I don't know if I ever want to be that sad again. It was just like the shock, the wow of it. Yeah, not a fun read. I highly recommend it if you are prepared for your heart to be ripped out and stomped on. The most frustrating book you read this year? I just did a whole ass reading vlog about this, explaining the entire plot, even though I couldn't really explain it because I didn't fully understand it, because it is Bunny by Mona A. Wood. This book, oh my god, I'm not even gonna go into it because I have a whole other video explaining it, but this book was so frustrating because I just didn't get what was going on. I did not understand this. Like, I know what I read, I know what the pages were telling me. Bringing it all together, I'm still sitting here scratching my head because I'm like, okay. And it was so frustrating because I just didn't get it. Like, there was just such a big disconnect from me, and I'm like, just lay it out. I need this like dumbed down because obviously it ain't sticking. It ain't sticking. The best book adaptation of the year. I can't believe we get to talk about this, and that is Daisy Jones and the Sixth. I always want to say the Sixth, but it's just Daisy Jones and the Six. The Six. This book. I loved this book so, so much. It is so unique because it is like a interview where they're talking to all of the band members. This is like set in the 70s, I think. The 60s, the 65 to 72. It follows this band, this rock band. There's a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, baby. And it turned into a limited series, I think on Amazon Prime is where you can watch Daisy Jones and the Six, and there is one season with 10 episodes, and they're like short movies. Like I think most of them are over an hour long, if not like an hour and a half, give or take. It is so well done. The book and the movie do have different endings, and the book and the show do have different endings, and I much prefer the show's ending than the book. They're mostly the same except for like one seemingly small detail, but it impacted me greater than I can even express. The casting was great. It's about just the inner workings. It's very character driven. I mean, there is a plot too, like you do follow them touring and being on the road, living in like vans, and like the start of how they became Daisy Jones and the Six. But then it is so character driven, and their relationships, their dynamic with each other. The show is a little bit different. They do cut out a couple characters. I can see why, just because like they're not huge, and I think it'd become a little bit confusing in the show just because it's hard to translate it perfectly from page to screen, but I think they did an excellent job, and this is one of my favorite books of the whole year. Next question is your favorite cover of the year, and I don't know if this one is like my favorite. I don't know. I'm kind of weird about covers, but this is my favorite book with a very exciting cover, like a special edition cover, and it's the paperback version of Fourth Wing with like the sparkly dragon. It has the sprayed edges. I do also have the holiday version, which is a hardcover, and it has like the red cover, the red dust jacket, and then like the fully black sprayed, but these have the dragons, and I just love it. This book has such a special place in my heart, and I do collect covers of Fourth Wing. I also have the sprayed version of Iron Flame. Next is a book that you can't stop thinking about, and for me it's a series, and that is the Caraval series. The first book was my favorite. It is about these sisters. The one goes missing, and the other sister thinks the first one went to go play in this mythical carnival game that comes around. It's like a traveling carnival, and the winner gets a wish, I think, or gets something, I don't know. So the one sister thinks that the other one went to go play in this carnival game, and then the other sister joins it trying to win to figure out where she went. And it's so whimsical, it's so dreamy. It is YA. There's a little bit of romance to it, but it just totally captivated me, and I fell in love with the world, with the characters. It's in the same universe as Once Upon a Broken Heart, and I haven't really read that series. I think I read Once Upon a Broken Heart, but I didn't carry on with it. But Caraval, I think about that quite often just because I would love to be a part of it. But just the description Stephanie Garber used and the words, and I felt totally transported there, and I would love to go back. I would love to go back. An unpopular book that you loved. To be honest, I read pretty popular books that are generically loved across the board, but I went through Goodreads, and one of the ones I rated 4 stars was Before We Were Innocent, and it had an average of like 3.4 stars. It follows these two friends in a past timeline and a present timeline. In the past timeline, there are 3 girls. They're all friends and traveling in Greece, and the one is mysteriously either murdered or dies over there, and the 2 of the friends are accused of her death and accused of murdering her, or that they know more than they're letting on. And in the present day, one of the friends finds herself in another sticky situation, caught up in a very similar predicament that they were in Greece. So it's just the dynamic of those 2 friends. To be honest, I read it very early in the year, and I don't really remember too much about it. But obviously I enjoyed it at the time because I gave it 4 stars. I don't really know what people didn't like about it. Didn't really look too much into it, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of cool, and I loved the 2 different timelines. I think one was like 2008 and one was 2018. So you see how the girls have grown and changed and developed in those 10 years. And they're like kind of estranged friends. They don't really see each other just because it was a pretty traumatic time period for them, and they've just grew apart, and then they come back together. What was a book you thought you loved but you didn't? And this one's kind of like Love in Other Words, but that was Archer's Voice. I liked this book. I thought I was gonna love it because again, it's very popular. A lot of people speak very, very highly of it, but I just didn't. I wasn't overly emotionally connected to the characters. It's not that it wasn't believable for me, but a lot of things just happened way too fast and I didn't really believe it, and it was just meh for me. It was all right. I finished it. I liked it, but I didn't love it as much as I thought I would and as much as other people do. The book with the most unique concept you read this year. This book is not the most unique concept. It is nothing groundbreaking. It did not reinvent the wheel, but that is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. And the reason why I'm putting this on here is because this was my very first Omegaverse book that I read, and this is what got me into it. This was my first experience with knotting. If you know, you know. Tying, things like that. But I loved it. I thought it was so fun. It was such a giggly little book to read. Very, very much like Ali Hazelwood. Like obviously she's the author, but she like stuck to her roots in her writing mannerisms, concepts kind of thing, but she dove into fantasy and I just thought it was so fun. This kind of is what like piqued my interest for the weirder, more out there books, and she was a good segue between like fantasy, like your generic fantasy, and like the Omegaverse and like the little more like breeding kink and stuff like that. So this was a unique concept for me and I loved it. I loved it so much. What book would you reread? And I don't typically reread books, only if they're my most favorite, which is why this one's on the list, and that is A Fourth Wing. As you can see, I annotated it. I have reread this one once, but I'm planning on doing another reread before Onyx Storm is released, which comes out like January 28th, I want to say. So I would like to reread Fourth Wing and Iron Flame in preparation for that. I just love this series so much. I love it so much. And I'm so excited for the third book to come out. Another book I would like to reread is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I think this was a very interesting book. It's like dark academia with secret societies, and it was a lot. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it was a lot. And there's the second book, Hellbent, and I think the third one is supposed to come out. I'm not sure when, but I think that is a book that you need to reread a couple of times to really pick up on like the secret little messages and some of like the smaller concepts that are in the book, just because it's a lot. And it's like this, we follow Alex Stern. She goes to like, I can't remember what college it is, but she's like there, some Ivy League college, and then some dude goes missing and like he's like taken by demons or something, or I don't even freaking really remember. But I just really want to reread it because the vibes, I remember the vibes being so good and loving it. I would just like a little refresh of it. What is a book that you wish you got to? And I found this book at Value Village and I've heard pretty good things about it. That is Circe by Madeline Miller. This is a book about like Greek gods, mythologies. We have Helios, the Titans, Zeus. We have the Minotaur, Daedalus, Icarus, Medea, and of course Odysseus. And the Olympians. Like, I love Percy Jackson. That was one of my favorite books. I love the movies. I think they are so great. And I think this book would be pretty nostalgic. And I totally meant to read it, but just did not pick it up. And I want to make this a priority for next year because I love Greek gods and mythology and that kind of stuff. I think it's so interesting and one of my favorite things to learn about. So that is all for the books, but there are like a couple little like wrap-up questions, and that is reflecting on your Goodreads reading goal for 2024 and reading goal for 2025. My reading goal on Goodreads for 2024 was 25 books, and on Goodreads I said I read 40. So maybe I was a little over I don't think I did keep track of all of them, but if my Goodreads goal was 25, I crushed it. I nailed it. I think I did so good. And I loved most of the books. There was a couple duds that I read, but for the most part, I really enjoyed them. So I think I'm gonna set my Goodreads goal for 35 books in 2025. I think that's doable. That is very, very doable for me. Keep in mind, I will be in school. I am going back to college in January, so for 2 semesters, January to August. So we'll see how that all plays out, but I think I can do 35 books. I think that's attainable. And then the final question is, what will you prioritize in your 2025 reading year? I think that is not rushing through books. I find I just want to know what happens, so I will skim read. Even if I'm very interested and invested in the book, I will still skim read, and I just want to take my time reading. I just want to fully dive into the books and to really become emotionally invested. Sometimes I feel like I put up a little bit of a barrier between me and the characters and me and the plot, but I just want to really build like a connection to the story and really care about the characters, care about their past, their present, and their future, and just have a good time reading. Just have fun. Anyways, that is it for this book tag. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!